Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Maddie's Rap, the show where our focus is on the enhancement of mind, body, and spirit. I am your host, the multiple award-winning author, Matt D. Talford, author of three books right now, but two amazing books, From Fear to Faith, A Survivor Story, and Stuck in an Elevator, that I'll tell you a little bit more about at the end of this video. We got a lot of material to get through today, so I want to skip all of the typical introductory stuff that I do and just save that for the end. I want to jump right into this topic, okay? The topic today is what you do if nobody saw you is who you really are. What you do if nobody saw you is who you really are. And how to do shadow work, okay? How to do shadow work. If you may be wondering, some of you may be wondering what shadow work is. I'm going to talk about it. We're going to cross that bridge when we get to it, all right? Not to sound cliche, but we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it, all right? Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you to my returning subscribers. You guys have been with me from the very beginning, and I read your comments and I comment on as many as I can. I thank you guys so much. Your participation in the comment boards is what makes this such a rich experience for me and for anybody who consumes this material. So thank you so much. And if you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll enjoy this video, and I invite you to check out some of my other videos and click that subscribe button so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. Now, before we begin, let me tell you that this is not a video for children, all right? Why? Are we talking adult themes in here? Not the type that they typically show on television, no. But we're going to be talking about knowing yourself. And the truth of the matter is, most children come into life not even knowing who they are or what they're here for. In fact, I got a passage of scripture. And as an aside, you guys have been watching me for a while. You know that Maddie's Rap is predominantly scripture editions of Maddie's Rap. So I'm always going to drop a scripture in there or build a video or a topic around a passage of scripture, because my goal is to illustrate how spirituality has been hidden. The Bible is a spiritual book. You guys hear me say that a lot, okay? If you've watched any of my videos for any amount of time, you know that I'm always talking about how the Bible is not a religious book. It's a spiritual book, okay? The Bible, or the scriptures, or whatever you want to call it. It's about spirituality, not religion, okay? The powers that were, I won't even say the powers that be, the powers that are going out, the powers that are going out, the outbound powers, took those sacred texts and hid the spirituality in them and framed religions, not just one, multiple religions around them, so that they can control the narrative. When you control the narrative, you control the people who subscribe to that narrative. So this is about liberty, all right? And I'm going to get into that later. But the passage of scripture that supports why this isn't, let me back up. The passage of scripture comes from Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, the 6th verse, okay? And that reads, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it," okay? So this isn't a video for children. Why did you read that scripture, Matt? It is to illustrate that, you know what, it is your job to teach your children and help them grow into who they are. And, you know, from that standpoint, again, we're going to be talking about birth charts today. If you had showed me my birth chart at age 7, it wouldn't have made much sense to me at all. So you got to live a little bit. I think personally, this is just a little personal aside. We're going to get into the video. I think that astrology should be a prerequisite in high school, because, you know, before you leave high school, you learn a lot about who you are, and then learning about who you are will help you to better interact with the people around you. Because I say this all the time, if we came to this planet by ourselves, you wouldn't need a birth chart. You wouldn't need to know astrology from the personal application of it, because you'd be the only one here, okay? So astrology is all about knowing who you are so that you can better interact with the world around you, all right? Now, what is the purpose of this video today? The purpose of this video is to share some universal truths about each of us with regards to who we really are. The soul, not the encapsulation of it that we see when we look in the mirror, or that we see when we encounter each other. And hopefully knowing that, or hopefully learning these principles, will help us to break free of any of the self-imposed mental shackles. Self-imposed. These aren't, nobody puts these shackles on your mind. we do it to ourselves, okay? So hopefully this will help us to break free from any self-imposed mental shackles and allow us to live life to the fullest extent of our soul's purpose and desires, okay? How are we gonna do that today? We're gonna break this video down into 3 parts, okay? Part 1, we will talk about the 2 sides of us that make us who we are. The side that everyone sees and the side of us that exists in the shadows, all right? In part 2, we will talk about the effect that religion has had on our souls when it comes to doing shadow work, and how arguably the largest figure in Western religion was actually not a religious person. And then finally in part 3, we will learn how simple it is to do shadow work and how knowing your personal astrology can be a very powerful tool in assisting you with that. All right? So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Part 1. Part 1. Contrasting our light side with our shadow side. All right? Light side versus shadow side. Everyone has a light side and a shadow side, all right? And I would like you guys to take a look at the video. If you're on your phone or tablet, you'll see a little pop-up here. It's a video I did earlier this year, and it's titled, or actually, did I do this year, or was it late 2021? I don't know. Anyway, it's a video I did a few months ago, all right? That video title is, Did the Devil Make You Do It, or Was It You? Take a look at that video. In fact, if you want to pause the video here and watch that one, that's a brief video, but it'll give you some insight into I won't call it a prerequisite, but it'll give you a different perspective or preliminary perspective into our shadow sides, all right? So check that out when you get a chance. But basically just know that everyone has a light side and a shadow side, all right? The light side of us is the side that we tend to show everybody, the side we tend to show to the world. Hey, it tends to be more of our positive aspects that we don't mind sharing with people, or more of the aspects that perhaps maybe society or the world deems acceptable, okay? And we co-sign and we adhere to that, and that's the side of us that we don't mind showing to people. That's probably a better description. Our light side is the side of us that we don't mind showing to people, okay? The shadow side is the side that we, perhaps don't want examined, by others. And in a lot of cases, the problem is that we don't want to examine those sides ourselves, all right? Now, some people have shadow aspects that they don't mind showing to people, all right? So you could argue, is it a shadow aspect or not? Example, somebody that may not mind cussing somebody out when they rub them the wrong way, is that a shadow aspect or not? That's up for debate. I say, hey, if I'm showing you who it is, it's no longer in the shadows, it's out, all right? Anyway, so just understand that everyone has a light side and a shadow side. And again, check out the video that I referenced. Did the devil make you do it, or was it you? As a as a launching board, as a launching pad. Okay. Now, who would you be? The question is, who would you be, or what would you be doing if you were not afraid of getting into trouble with the law? Think about that for a minute. Just stop and chew on that. Who would you be, or what would you be doing if you weren't afraid of getting into trouble with the law? That's who you really are. That is who you really are, okay? That's number 1. Think about that. Listen, write that down. Write that down. That's not for me. I already got my answers to those questions, all right? That is for you. So write that down. Who would I be, or what would I be doing if I weren't afraid of getting in trouble with the law? Now, I know that that's extreme, but the truth of the matter is sometimes when you're ready to do shadow work, you got to jump right in and not be afraid to look at yourself. Shadow work is all about self-examination, all right? That's number 1, all right? Next, what would you be doing, or who would you be if only you had the money? That could be positive, could be, I won't call it negative, it just could be something you don't want people to see, right? Shadow work, we're doing shadow work today. Who would you be, or what would you be doing if only you had the money? That's you. That is you, all right? And I could spend a whole separate video on how not being that person before the money arrives prevents us from ever getting to become, or can prevent us from ever getting the money to become that person, or getting the money that we think we need to become that person, right? I could do a whole video on that. Well, if I only had the money, I'd be doing this. I got a yoga teacher that taught years ago. Shout out to you, Maria, if you're watching this video. I had a yoga teacher that said, hey, you know what? She read an excerpt from a book, and this is one of the things I loved about her yoga class. She would always try to read something positive, something, a little story, share a story, just as a theme before we got into, opening up our bodies and getting into those tight places and opening those up. Because believe it or not, I'm big on yoga. I don't practice as much as I used to, but one of the things that yoga does is you get into these deep places in your muscles, your flexibility. When you start to unlock those hips, especially, you start unlocking certain joints and you can get into a certain twist or whatever, sometimes you start to feel an emotional release. And what a lot of yogis, especially in the East, teach is that emotions that you don't deal with can sometimes manifest in the body. A lot, God forbid they should manifest as disease, but one of the things that was shared with me is that when you have tight hip joints, that is typically emotions that you're holding on to. So if you want a quick emotional test, I'm not going to do it because I don't have the camera set up on the floor, and I'm not going to get down on the floor. But look up pigeon pose. Look up how to do pigeon pose, and then get in pigeon pose and see how deep you can get. See how long you can hold that, just breathing in deeply and breathing out. And think about what starts to, if those hips feel tight, think about what starts to come to your mind when you're in that pose. I'm here to tell you, there were times where I was almost in tears, and it wasn't from pain. It was from emotions that were getting released that I didn't realize were trapped. My mind started flooding, and I'm in this pose holding it, and I'm thinking about things that happened to me, and I'm like, wow. And so it just kind of showed me that what these yogis were teaching is true, that emotions sometimes get trapped in our joints. So anyway, I know I took you all the way around the block to get you to the house next door. I tend to do that. But what Maria said that day, she said was, don't wait until a certain thing happens for you to start being who you are. Be in the moment. Start imagining yourself as that person without the money, because when you imagine yourself already doing that, you attract what is needed to be that, to become that, or to have that thing, or to be that person. You attract what you need when you start living in that space. Remember, things are conceived first. Conception happens before birth. Conception happens before birth. It happens in the natural. It also happens in the spiritual. Anything that is manifest was a thought originally. This computer, this camera I'm looking at, this was a thought. This was somebody's idea that they sketched. Okay, how can I build something that can reproduce an image? It came from here first. It was a thought they conceived in their mind, and it became a tangible thing. All right. So anyway, let me get you back on the main street. All right. What would you be doing, or who would you be if you only had the money? That is who you are. Okay. Now, next, the final question I have before we get to part 2 is, who would you be, or what would you do if you didn't care what other people thought about you? That's the biggest question, and that is why I saved it for number 3. Who would you be, or what would you do if you didn't care what others thought about you? That is you. That's where the rubber meets the road when it comes to doing self-examination, and that is the beginning of doing shadow work. A lot of us don't do the things that we really want to do, or the things that we desire in our souls to do, or desire in our hearts to do, because we're worried about what somebody's going to say about me. Oh man, that thought came to my mind when I left a 6-figure job in 2013 to dive into the unknown world of becoming an author and writing a book. Man, people gonna be like, man, you leaving this job, man. Authors don't make no money, man. You ain't no world renowned. You ain't no J.K. Rowling or no Rick Warren or none of these people that are the top of the food chain when it comes to writing. You gonna jump out into the unknown? That crossed my mind, but guess what? If I had listened to those voices, I'd still be doing a job that was starting to take its toll on me. I liked what I did. I liked what I did, and I liked who I worked with, but I no longer liked the framework that they were putting around a job. And I said to myself, you know what? I can change jobs. I can go to a different company, but this is corporate America. So I don't care if you're in banking, finance, healthcare. I don't care if you're into insurance. I don't care if you're into technology, IT. Corporate politics is corporate politics, right? So anyway, I had to get away from it. But that's just one example. And I'm going to go back to my homegirl, Maria, who again, she read a story one day before we started yoga class. And this was a story of a young lady that went around interviewing people in a nursing home. And the thing that she asked all of them, and it blew her away, that she got the same answer over and over and over from so many different people in so many different nursing homes. They all said the same thing. She asked them, what would you do differently at this stage in your life as you look back over your life? Is there anything you would have done differently? And why? And the resounding answer she got over and over again was, I would have done what I wanted to do if I didn't care what people thought about me. I would have done what I wanted to do if I didn't care what people thought about me. So basically what you have in effect is people or souls, because we gotta be mindful that these are just vehicles that we're looking at. I said that in a video that I published yesterday, all right? I did a video titled, Is the Woman God? And this was to deal with some of these people call themselves religious, but when you listen, some of these people call themselves spiritual, but when you listen in on what they're saying and the delivery of it, the dogma in it is very, very, very similar to religion. So I'm like, you claim to be spiritual, but what you're doing is in fact religion, right? So anyway, not to get off on that tangent, but all of these people, it's like they get to this point in life and they're like, God, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. And the truth of the matter is that's your soul's desire. And, people talk about the reincarnation loop. I won't talk about that. I reference this movie a lot in a lot of my videos. If you have not seen it, go and watch the movie Edge of Tomorrow. I think it came out in 2014 starring Tom Cruise. That movie, to me, is such a powerful reflection of the existence of the soul. We tend to get caught up in, and I'm going to talk about religion in a minute, but we tend to get caught up in this whole religiosity of living once and then your soul spending eternity in a polarity, either a polarity that's cool and comfortable or a polarity that's hot and unbearable. Heaven or hell, right? It's wrong. It's wrong. Go and watch Edge of Tomorrow, rent it, Redbox it, or Amazon, or wherever you can find the movie. Edge of Tomorrow came out in 2014 starring Tom Cruise. Watch that movie. To me, it is a really, really, really good encapsulation of the essence of the soul and purpose, all right? So, back to the elderly. They all get to this point in their life and they're like, God, now you're out of time, so guess what that means? That means that when your soul exits this vehicle and you're graded in the realm of souls on how you performed or lived out your soul contract. That's another theme that some people aren't up on, but you can write that down and go and investigate it yourself. Soul contracts, all right? Did you perform everything that you were contracted to do when you were incarnated? If you didn't, guess what? That means you left some stuff on the table and you got to go and do it again. And guess what? You're going to reincarnate with no memory of how you lived your last life. So hopefully you can get fragments of it that you can piece together, and maybe these other phenomena like deja vu or past life memories or soul fragments of past life memories can help you to piece that together so you can get through it. All right. I know I'm talking some spiritual concepts and I went a little bit off script a little bit, but I feel like that was important to say and it came out of me. So don't be that person. Don't get to the end of your life and say, man, I wish I had done such and such. And perhaps what it was that you wish you had done was your soul's desire, or what your soul came here to do, your soul's purpose, but you didn't do it because you were too afraid to step out of the box, because you were afraid of what somebody was going to say about you or how you were going to be looked at by people who at the end of the day don't matter because their name isn't on your soul contract. Think about it. When you go to buy a house, I used this reference before. When you go to buy a piece of real estate, I've worked in real estate, okay? And I've seen so many young people in real estate falter because they got somebody in their ear telling them, no, don't do this, do this, do this, do this. And by the time they get to the closing table, they have a house or a home situation that reflects what the other person's desires for the home was, and it's so far away from what it was that they wanted when they started out. And so now you're in a house that you got to live in for a little while before you can even think about selling it, and hopefully the market is where you can sell it and you can get some equity and, you know, get out of it and get something else that now, okay, I listened to you before and I didn't get what I want, now I'm doing it my way. Hopefully you can avoid that trap and just do what your soul came here to do. You can help do that by doing some shadow work, looking inside, all right? Don't know why I went there. That wasn't the theme. That wasn't in my notes, but sometimes the spirit takes these things over. So, last bullet point, who would you be or what would you do if you didn't care what others thought about you, all right? That is you. So write that down. Write down anything it is that you have going on in your life that, let me back up. Write down anything that it is that you don't have going on in your life that your soul desires, but you're not doing it because, and it could be anything. It could be anything. It's not for me. I got my own stuff. You write yours down. What is it? What would I be doing if I didn't care what other people thought about it? All right. Now, let's move on to part 2. Part 2 is the religious effect. All right. Now, I originally called this how the church and religion can serve as the chains that keep us from being free. But I just decided I didn't want anybody watching because a lot of people are still caught up in the church matrix. And if you are, I'm not mad at you. It just means that you haven't woken up yet. I mean, if you're in a house with a bunch of siblings, look, I have 5 siblings, okay? We all, you know, back in the day when we were growing up as children, we woke up at different times, all right? Weekend, there's no alarm clock. Nobody was using the alarm clock then. The alarm clock was your mom during the school year, okay? She got up and turned that light on. It's like, get up, all right? Okay, I didn't use an alarm clock until I left home and joined the Army. That was the first time I actually owned an alarm clock. But anyway, you know, back then we woke up at different times. And it's the same way with our soul's journeys. We're not here to beat up anybody that their soul hasn't awakened to their purpose yet. It's just that, hey, you know what? You give them the information and everybody's going to wake up at a different time. We all came here at different times. So everybody's going to wake up at a different time. Now, so I didn't want people who are still in the religious matrix to feel like I was picking on them, because that's not what the purpose of this video is. So, and I thought I put this in airplane mode, but obviously I didn't. Okay, had to get rid of that distraction there. Now, so where are we going? Part 2. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to contrast the modern church establishment with 2 scripture passages, all right? We're going to contrast the modern church establishment and we're going to contrast that with spirituality. And let me go to my other notes here because something's missing from that one. Give me 1 second here. Let's see. Okay, yeah. We're going to contrast the modern church establishment. Yeah. Oh, it looks like I changed the notes so they're the same. That Apple thing. Those of you on Apple, you know how it works. You can put a note in one device, it shows up on all of them. Okay. God, I thought I turned that off. But you know what? I'm not going to stop this recording. We're going to work through it, okay? Now, let me go give you 2 passages of scripture. Jeremiah 31 and 33 through 34. Let's go there. Let's see what that says. Jeremiah. Okay, Jeremiah 31 and 33 through 34. All right? Oh, this is what I was going to say, okay? Before I get into that passage of scripture, let's talk about this. Now, this is where we're going to contrast spirituality and doing shadow work with the way that the modern church establishment rolls. Now, what do you mean by that, Matt? How does the modern church establishment roll? The modern church establishment is you got a pastor, preacher, a team of pastors, or you might be I don't want to talk about the seminary. That's not exactly the same, but you got a pastor, a priest, or a rabbi telling you, hey, this is what God said that you're supposed to be doing, or whatever they choose to call them in that whatever particular religion is, okay? This your Zen master, your religious leader, whatever. This is what you should be doing according to God, or this is what the book says you should be doing, all right? Now, I got a problem with that because that is in stark contrast with these 2 passages of scripture I'm about to show you. Jeremiah 31, verse 33. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. And for those of you who've been following me for a while, you know I tend to read from the King James Version, but use whichever translation suits you best. Okay. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. Okay? So now, let's go over to the second passage, and then we'll talk about that. The second passage of Scripture can be found in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. So I just gave you an Old Testament reference. Let's go to the New Testament. This is in Hebrews, the 8th chapter, beginning at verse number 8 and going through verse 13. Hebrews 8 and 8. For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind, and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. And that he saith, a new covenant he hath made the first old. In that he saith, a new covenant he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Okay, so that was Hebrews 8 and 8 through 13. Now, why is that significant with regards to the religious effect on doing shadow work? Okay, you have someone who is a religious leader, pastor, priest, rabbi, whatever, telling you this is what you should do and this is what you should not do. But what is written there? What is written in the Word? The Word says that God said, you're not going to have to tell them anymore that this is what you should do and this is what you should not do, because I'm going to write my laws in their heart and they're going to know me, is basically what he said. All right. They're going to know right from wrong. You can take that and just summarize it by saying they're going to know right from wrong. OK, they all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. That means from the youngest to the oldest, from the lowest man on the totem pole to the man that's highest up in society. All of that's covered. Least to greatest, you can use that in years, or you can use that in status or stature. Okay. Now, you want to know how we know that's true? Look at babies. Any of you moms out here that got babies, that have children, you can remember the first time you saw a look on that baby's face when they knew they were doing the wrong thing, right? How did they know they were doing the wrong thing if you never told them that thing was wrong? That's how you know that word is real. Okay. All right. So that is the problem I got with, I shouldn't say problem. I just wanted to contrast and show you how the modern church establishment does versus what's written in the Scripture. Because all of this is leading to doing shadow work, and we're in part 2 where we're talking about the religious effect on us doing our shadow work and what keeps us from being free. What keeps us from being free is that we're still operating on an old model, a very, very old model. You don't need a priest to tell you right from wrong. You know right from wrong. You know it. So there are people that have never been to church. They're more righteous in their behavior and their service to mankind than people who sit up in church every Sunday and say, well, I gave this much in church. Yeah, but you're still acting like a crooked letter hole out in the street. You at home acting like a crooked letter hole. I'm trying to keep it clean because, I found out that my nephew saw one of my videos, how fear causes us to up. And he went to his grandma and said, Grandma, Uncle Matt said those bad words. And she had to explain to him, Uncle Matt's a grown man, and sometimes people express themselves in ways that are understood, okay, by other adults. But you're not allowed to talk like that. When you grow up and you're not living under this roof anymore, this is what happens. Okay, you guys probably heard the phone ring. I got distracted there. I'm at the office, and airplane mode takes care of my cell, but it doesn't take care of the office phone. So didn't expect to receive that call. But anyway, to get back to my point, there are people that do certain things, they live any kind of way, whatever, and they just think, okay, well, I can go and do my alms or pay this penance. And you know what? I'm not gonna go down that path. Let me get on to bullet point number 2. All right. Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs 23:7. All right. Let's take a look at that. Proverbs 23:7. All right. Let's see what Proverbs 23:7 has to say and how that plays into the religious effect. Okay. And this really could be the theme for this entire video, this entire subject matter. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you guys have heard the scripture, whatsoever a man thinketh, so is he. That's where this came from. All right. Well, Proverbs 23:7, in a nutshell, is saying whatsoever a man thinks, so is he. All right. Talking about shadow work, talking about what you would do if nobody saw you is who you really are. That's the basis of doing shadow work. Okay. That's the basis of self-identification. For as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's who you really are. So you can say one thing, and again, this section of Proverbs is illustrating how somebody can say that hey, yeah, welcome to dinner, yeah, but then in their heart they be like, is they gonna eat up all my food? I hope they don't take the last whatever you like to eat. I don't know, whatever it is. But anyway, Proverbs 23:7. It should really be the theme. I could have read this in the beginning to summarize the whole thing. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about the Messiah. All right, remember I told you how arguably the greatest figure in Western religion wasn't religious at all. Let's talk about the Messiah. All right. Let's talk about how he did not come to enhance an existing religion or to create a new one. All right? He didn't come here for that. He actually came here to free us from the chains that bound us. Watch this. I'm going to read Luke, the 4th chapter and the 18th verse. Let's go there. Hope you guys are writing these scriptures down because you can go back and look at them later. Luke 4 and 18. And guys, listen, my phone is blowing up with text messages, so I'm just going to consider it a distraction because I never get that many when I'm recording. But anyway, this is red letter edition, so when you see it in red, this is pretty much the words of the Messiah. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Okay, that's Luke chapter 4 verse 18. Let's expound on that a little bit. Okay, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me or chosen me, selected me to preach the gospel to the poor. Okay, to the poor. Could be monetarily poor, could be poor in heart, could be poor in mindset. All right, you got a poor mindset, you're gonna have a poor existence. All right. So he came to preach the gospel of the good news to the poor, all right? He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. You hear me talk a lot about that 4th chakra. That's your heart. Whatever is in a man's heart is who he is. Whatever's in a woman's heart is who she is, okay? To preach deliverance to the captives, all right? Was he preaching deliverance? Was he going into prison and preaching, this is how you get out to those that are captive? Sometimes you got to be able to understand what you're looking at. People talk about, oh yeah, Jesus, he went into the jails and he preached to the captives. He preached deliverance to the captives. The only deliverance somebody in jail is looking for is, okay, how can you get me out of here? What you're saying is real good, but can you get me out of here? Now, the other captive is the captive mind. The captive mind. How are our minds held captives? Or how are our minds held captive? They're held captive by the words of others. Sometimes our minds are held captive by the thoughts of others. What are they going to think about me? What are they going to say about me? What are they saying now? Okay? The pastor said if I don't do this, I'm going to die and go to hell. Pastor said if I live right, heaven belongs to me. Pastor said if I give my last and put it in the offering pan, I'm going to heaven. Meanwhile, the pastor living in heaven off what you put in the offering pan. Don't get triggered. If that ain't you, then don't worry about it. It don't apply to you, all right? If it applies to you and you're triggered, then fix it. Learn how to do your shadow work. We're going to get to that in section 3, okay? All right. So That's the captives. The captive in your mind. Remember, where the mind goes, the body follows. So if your mind is bound, you're going to be bound physically. And I don't mean physically bound like in chains. I'm talking about you're not going to do the things that it is that your heart desires or that your soul desires because you're captive, all right? The television set. Turn that TV off. That television set is like the darn corrections officer sometimes. You're held in prison, that those different television programming is holding you further captive. Turn that TV off, all right? Anyway, and recovering sight to the blind. Now, did the Messiah heal the blind? Did he restore sight to the blind physically? Yes, he did. But you also have to look at blind as blind to the truth. You can't see. When you're blind to the truth, you can't even see how to move. So he was recovering sight to the blind, helping them, hey, no. They got you caught up in religion and doctrine. Let me show you who you are. You're blind to who you are. Let me show you who you are. Open your eyes and see who you are. How do you know who you are? I'm going to tell you. This is what the soul is. Learn what your soul came to do, okay? And to set at liberty them who are bruised, them that are bruised. Bruised how? Bruised hearts, bruised emotions. Set at liberty. Are you setting at liberty somebody who's got a bruise on their arm or somebody hit them? Nah, if that person ain't still hitting them, you're not setting them at liberty. So you have to be able to read these scriptures and understand what it is you're reading. When he says to set at liberty them that are bruised, people have been hurt for years by false doctrine. So that's what he came here for. All right? That's Luke 4:18. Next bullet point. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, your soul free. John 8:32. John 8:32. You are free. People, oh, no, I live in a free country. Yeah, but you're still bound. You're bound because you don't know the truth. The truth. What is the truth? That's what we're talking about here. This is this is all about how the religious establishment actually keeps you from being free because they hide the truth from you. The truth is that the Bible is not a religious book. It is a spiritual book. These things that I'm teaching are spiritual concepts. The things that the Messiah taught were spiritual concepts. They were not religious concepts. When he said you are the salt of the earth, that was spiritual. What does salt do? Salt does two things. It preserves and it flavors. So he was telling the people, you are the salt. You are the salt of this realm that you're living in. That's not religious. That's spiritual. He's basically saying, wake up and remember who you are and what your purpose is. I can do a whole nother lesson. I've done one on that. I'm going to refresh it. I did one like maybe 3 years ago on that. I'm going to refresh that. But let me move along, okay? Did the Messiah come to save our souls? He absolutely did. But not in the way that the scripture misrepresenting pastor told you it was. See, the goal of the church seems to be not real soul preservation and growth, but rather to literally scare the hell out of you, right? Do they even teach soul energy properly? Can the church tell you what a soul is and how it works? They can't properly describe the soul existence, including something as simple as how the soul enters and exits the body. I never had a pastor tell me anything about how the seventh chakra, what the purpose of the seventh chakra is. Your soul enters your body and exits your body through your crown chakra. Never learned that in church. That's a spiritual concept, okay? All right? They can't properly tell you how soul energy works, okay? Including something as simple as how the soul enters and exits the body. Okay? They can't describe to you how a soul contract works. Why? Because they're not teaching those principles. Okay? But they can tell you this. They can tell you that you only live once. And based on how you live, you either spend eternity in heaven or hell. If you guys have heard me say this once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. We're living in eternity right now. You're an eternal being. You're here in a vehicle that allows you to operate in the space that you're in this planet Earth. What you're looking at on this camera right now, this is just a container for my soul. Your soul is eternal. Okay? All right? He did come to save our souls, but not in the way that the church taught it. Okay? He came to what is salvation? Salvation is to rescue and to preserve. Okay? Rescue our souls from the soul trap. From the reincarnation trap. Oh, you know what? You didn't do it right. You got to do it again. That's real. Okay? So, Let me show you who you are. Let me teach you these spiritual concepts so that your soul can ascend and you can move on to something new. You can move on to a new assignment. You can move on to a new existence. You can move on to a new reality. These are spiritual concepts. But the church has taken them and framed religion around them and made it about thou shalt do. This is what you shall do. Didn't I just read the passage of scripture, the Old Testament and the New Testament reference, saying that nobody's got to tell you this is who God is anymore because you're going to know him for yourself? You communicate with him through your crown chakra. That's the other purpose of your seventh chakra. That's your communication tower. I talked about this in another video. You got 3 masculine energies and 3 feminine energies. Chakra 1, masculine. Chakra 2, feminine. Chakra 3, masculine. Chakra 4, feminine. Chakra 5, your throat, masculine. Chakra 6, your third eye, feminine. Crown doesn't have a gender. It's neither feminine nor masculine. It is your portal. It's your communication your communication tower. It is your lid that you enter into this suit and get out of this suit. All right. All right. Let's keep going. Let me start with, we talked about how the church isn't teaching you soul energy. Let me go to Jeremiah 1 and 4 through 5 because they tell you you're going to only live once and then you're going to die and either go to heaven or hell. Let's go to Jeremiah, the first chapter of Jeremiah. All right. Let's do that. We learned it today. Hopefully you guys are writing notes, okay? Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. Oh, well, let's go back to verse 4. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4 through 5, all right? Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Verse 5, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. How did he know you before you were formed in the belly? And before thou came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. How did he do that? That's energy. We're talking about soul energy. All of us are energy. The body that you're looking at, it won't move without your energy in it. A car won't move without energy. What's the energy of that car? That engine. What's the energy of that engine? The spark, the electricity, and the fuel. That's what gets that engine going, and that's what gets that car turning. You remove the energy from the car doesn't move. Your body's just a vehicle. Your soul is energy, okay? So he knew your energy before he instilled that energy into your vehicle. All right? Before thou camest out forth from the womb, I sanctified thee. What is sanctify? Sanctify means to set aside, to mark, to consecrate. Hey, you know what? This is mine. This is mine. That's what sanctify means. Sanctify means to consecrate. Consecrate means to set aside for a special purpose. So if he said, I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. The church establishment has taught us that sanctify is like, I sanctify my hands, now I'm ready to eat. No, that's not what that means. Go look up the original Hebrew word. Y'all get you a Strong's Concordance and look these verses up and look up what these words are and what the original Hebrew or Greek meaning is, depending on if you're in the Old Testament or the New Testament. All right? Let me keep moving. All right? You got questions? Please leave them in the comments below. All right. Now, heaven and hell. The church told you we're going to go to heaven or hell based on how you live one time. Like, that don't even make sense. You live one time, like you never existed. Your daddy and your mom got together, created a spark, and then here you can. That's almost Darwinism if you think about it. That's almost like, okay, that's almost a theory of evolution. Like, it don't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. Your soul energy. All right, let me keep going. All right. Heaven and hell are not places. They're life conditions. They're life conditions that are experienced in the body, not in some location in the ether. I talked about that in my video yesterday. Is the woman God? I talked about that. All right. Heaven and hell. Hell, they say, well, the flame is not quenched and the worm dieth not. How does a worm eat your flesh unless you have flesh? A worm can't eat spirit. A worm can't eat energy. All right. Energy is energy. All right. Flesh can be burned. Can energy be burned? Think about that. Now, some of y'all gonna argue, yeah, energy can be burned. Your soul in hell. Hell is a condition. There are people living in hellish conditions. There are people that are enjoying paradise on earth. They're living in places on earth you've never seen. They're so beautiful. Okay? All right? How can a spirit or soul without a body experience worms? inflammation, and worm infestation are physical occurrences. They're not ethereal, all right? Let's move on. That's it. So hopefully that gave you guys an idea of how what the religious effect is and how the church and religion kind of keep the chains on us and as opposed to us being free. Spirituality sets you free. Religion confines you. Religion constricts you. Spirituality sets you free. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, all right? Isn't that Romans 12:2, I believe it is? Be not conformed to this world, this physical world. Be not conformed to it and the doctrines thereof, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your mind is spirit. Your mind, you can't touch your mind. You know, your brain can be touched, but you can't touch your mind. Your mind is energy. Your mind is energy, okay? All right, let's move on to part 3 and wrap this up. Part 3 is shadow work and how to do it, all right? Shadow work is not easy, but ironically, the process is simple, okay? Examining your shadow self. To examine your shadow self, you simply need to look into your own heart and see what is there, all right? Let me read another passage of scripture for you. I told you guys it's going to be a scripture edition. All of this stuff is backed up in the scripture. And again, I'm here to show you that the Bible is a spiritual book, not a religious book. All right. Let's go to Matthew, the 15th chapter. All right. All right. Talking about doing shadow work. Matthew, the 15th chapter. OK. Let's see. Where do I want to jump in here? This says Matthew 15 and 1 through 20. In the first couple of verses, they ask him why they transgression, why are his disciples transgressing the tradition of the elders by not washing their hands? And he countered back and said, why do you yourself transgress the commandment of God? Okay, so you telling me my disciples wrong for transgressing your traditions, and I'm telling you you're transgressing the rules of the Most High. Okay, with your tradition, because you said. Basically, verse 4, for God commanded, saying, honor thy mother and father, and he that curses the father and mother, let him die the death. But you say, whosoever shall say to his father or mother, it is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honoreth not his father or mother, he shall be free. So basically, you're telling these people, God said if you dishonor your mother and father, you're going to die. You're telling them if they dishonor their mother and father, but they bring them a gift, then they'll be free from whatever it was that they dishonored them. This is why some of these kids out here talk any kind of way to their parents, because they're like, well, I can just buy him something, and I know my mom like blah, 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 or I know my dad want to blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring him a gift, and then we cool, you know, whatever. And then it don't matter how I talk to them. My gift erases whatever I said to them. So he's checking them on that, all right? He said, you hypocrites, all right? He calls them a hypocrite. And then basically what he says, they go on from there. They said, let's see. He says, verse 10, he says, he called the multitude and said unto them, hear and understand that is not that which goeth into the mouth that defileth the man, but that which cometh out of the mouth that defileth the man. Stay with me. We're talking about shadow work, okay? Let's go on down. Verse 17, he says, do you not yet understand that whatsoever entereth into the mouth and goes into the belly is cast out when they go to the bathroom? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, and blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands, they don't defile him. All right? So that was Matthew. I kind of jumped around. I've been getting distracted right and left today. Somebody don't want me to put this message out, but I'm going to do it anyway, okay? So Matthew 15 and 1 through 20, read it for yourself. But this is the basis for doing shadow work. He's telling you that it's what comes out of a man that defiles him, all right? What's in a man's heart, all right? That's the part we don't necessarily see. We don't always see what's in a man's heart until we see the actions, all right? The actions that are associated. The associated actions are the products of what came from that person's heart, all right? Now, so we're talking about doing shadow work, and how easy is it? How easy is it to do shadow work, Matt? Well, first of all, ask yourself, do I like who I am in the shadows? You might like who you are in the shadows, okay? What's that side of me that people don't see that I either like or dislike? Or what's that side of me that I don't want to necessarily show, that I either like or dislike? Now, there are some sides of you that you don't necessarily want to show to everybody, that you may want to show to your spouse or significant other or whatever, okay? Or there's some sides, there's a way that you may talk at home, that when you're in the comfort of your home, that you may not necessarily want to talk out in the street. That's okay. That's because you like that you like that about yourself, okay? But if there's something that's in your shadow side that you don't like, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you got to start doing the work, okay? So if you like who you are in the shadows, then embrace that person and bring that person forward into the light as is necessary or whatever, or as is kosher, all right? Because that's a very empowering thing. It's very empowering to let people see, to bring forth that thing that's in the shadows. That's very empowering, especially if you like who you are in the shadows. What does that go back to? That goes back to what we were saying. I would have done what I would have done if I didn't care what people thought about me. So you keep that in the shadows because you're worried about what people thought. But you actually like that person you are. Don't be that old person laying on their deathbed, counting their days or hours. It's reflecting on their life and saying, darn it, I wish I had done that. Okay? Don't be that person. Now, on the flip side, if you do not like who you are in the shadows, then express gratitude for the lessons that you learned from that version of yourself. All right? Express gratitude. And then next, understand that you have the power to change those aspects of yourself and do the work required to turn a negative into a positive. It's called transmutation, all right? It's called transmutation. Taking something and changing the form of it into something that is useful to you, something that is usable, something that is acceptable. That is what transmutation is all about. So, if you don't like who you are in the shadows, it's real simple. Express gratitude for the lessons you learned. All right, you learned something from that. You learned, hey, you know what? Man, this person that I was last year, I did some things that didn't work out so well for me. Let me change that. I don't like that person. I don't even know why I did that. I don't like that person. But let me not be afraid to look at that. Let me look inside and as painful as it may be, let me look and see who that is and let me deal with it. All right? Now, the next thing, learn what your major astrological placements are and what they say about you, both positive and negative. Okay? The placements I consider to be the major ones. Now, how do you do that? You got to get your birth chart. How do you get your birth chart? Simple. There's a bunch of websites, tools, calculators. I'll put one or two of them in the description box below, and you can click those links, and they'll give you a breakdown of your birth chart. What are you going to need? You're going to need your date of birth. You're going to need the city you were born in. And ideally, you want the time you were born, okay? Ideally, you're going to want to know the time you were born because some of these major placements require your birth time. If you don't know what time you were born, then you're not going to get the full rap sheet on who you are. You're not going to get the full description. You're not going to get the full instruction manual, okay? So, place of birth, time of birth, date of birth. You need those things, and then you can pop it in one of those links or find your own if you don't like the ones I put in the description box. So, what are the placements that I consider to be the major ones? Simple. Your sun, your moon, your rising, aka ascendant, it's also called the ascendant, and your north node and south node, your nodes. Those are your four major placements. Your sun sign, everybody knows their sun sign. Hey man, I'm a Capricorn. Okay, everybody knows what their sign is because that's based on, the day and month they were born, okay, or the day they were born. What season was it in? What sign were they born under? Okay, that's your sun. Your sun, what is your sun? Your sun, solar. It's you. It is who you are. Solar, sun. Solar. So there are different theories out there. People think that your sun sign changes from lifetime to lifetime. If you believe in reincarnation, which I do, to live once doesn't make sense when you're talking about eternal energy. But I'm not going to beat that horse anymore. Some people think that your sun sign changes. I'm here to tell you your sun sign doesn't change. The sun doesn't change, okay? So if you were a Capricorn today, if I'm a Capricorn today, I was a Capricorn the last time I was here. I was a Capricorn before that, That's my soul energy. My soul energy is Capricorn, okay? That's your sun, all right? Your moon sign. So you got your sun, your moon. Your moon sign is what constellation was the moon in when you were born, okay? Your moon sign, very important to know what your moon sign is. Your sun sign is the sign that everybody sees. It's who you are. Your moon sign is how you feel. It is who you are. It's what you see when you look in the mirror. Doesn't mean you're not a Capricorn. It just means that the moon sign is the more personal sign, okay? Your sun sign is your masculine energy that comes from your father. Your moon sign, that's your feminine energy that comes from your mother, okay? Rising, your rising sign, that is the position the sun was in the eastern, the sunrise in the eastern sky, something like that. Guy, you guys can look that up. But it is the you that is how the world sees you, okay? This is how the world sees you. The world, I know the number Capricorn. My rising sign is Libra. That's how the world sees me. The world sees me as Libra energy. What is Libra energy? Go look that up. I don't want to make this into an astrology lesson. And then last but not least is your nodes, your north node and your south node, okay? Let's see. Again, the sun is your light of day, who you are at the core, your soul essence. Your moon, the moon is the ruler of the nighttime, shadows, okay? It's easier to hide things in the darkness of night. The moon is the side of ourselves that we don't show to everybody. The sun is I am, the moon is I feel. The moon is more closely tied. Your moon sign is tied directly and closely to your emotions, okay? Your sun sign is your energy, the energy you give off. Your moon sign is your emotions, okay? The sun, that solar sun, it gives off energy. Solar power. Sun gives off energy. Your moon is your emotions, okay? Your rising sign is how you present yourself to the world, okay? So a quick rule of thumb, your sun is I am, your moon is I feel, and your rising sign is I appear, okay? And then your north node, your soul's path. It's your soul's purpose. It is the challenges that you were intended to overcome in this lifetime, what you signed up for, okay? Now, opposite your north node is your south node. Your south node represents the characteristics that you brought forward into this lifetime, okay? It's what you brought forward with you. If you ever wonder how or why you're so good at some things or why they come so easily, it's probably tied to your south node. All right, my south node is Cancer, north node Capricorn. Okay, south node, the stuff I'm good at taking care of people. I'm good at showing love to people. I'm good at things that are Cancer oriented, cooking, entertaining. Those are things that come natural to me. Like nobody ever had to teach me that, show me that stuff. Those things come natural to me. I didn't know anything about north node and south node before, but now that I understand these things, it makes perfect sense to me. My whole life, okay, those are the characteristics that have shown up for me. But then the north node is okay, opposite your south node. Okay, this is what you're good at. This is your area for development. This is what you got to go do. This is what you got to accomplish. That's tied to Capricorn energy. All right, I won't get too much into that, but talking about doing shadow work. Okay, so now how your birth chart is the major tool in helping you to not only do your shadow work but to live your best life. Okay, how is that? It teaches you your negative and your positive aspects. All right, talking about doing shadow work. Shadow work is actually it's not easy to do because it's not easy to examine yourself, but the process is simple. Okay, all right, get your birth chart. Get your birth chart. When you get the birth chart, click one of the links I got in the bottom there. It's going to show you what's positive and what's negative. All right, the negative aspects, those kind of more tied to your shadow side. Okay, man, this is what hurts me. This is where I have a tendency to hurt others, okay? Look at those shadow sides, okay? When you get that birth chart, your positive things, keep playing those up. Keep building those, keep developing those. But to do that shadow work, you need to look at yourself and look at the things about you that could be improved. Things that you see as ugly, not what somebody else said. What somebody else said doesn't count, okay? You came here alone, you're gonna leave alone, okay? Now, I ain't gonna get into the whole soul cluster thing, like groups of people incarnated at the same time. You were born by yourself, okay? All right? So, look at those negative aspects of your birth chart and learn how you can keep those from working against you, and also look at how you can maybe control those things that maybe, and some things we grow out of during our lifetime. When you look at your birth chart, you might see something to say, well, no, I don't agree with that. Well, then ask yourself, was I that person when I was younger? Because you might find, you know what, I was that person when I was younger. That means you grew out of it. So I'm going to get ready to wrap this video up. I know we went over a lot of information today. I hope you guys are taking notes. In part one, again, just to recap, part one, we talked about the two sides of us that make us who we are. I gave you a video I wanted you to watch that says, did the devil make me do it? That's huge. That's going to drive home what we've been talking about today. So you either watch it before, or hopefully you watched it before, but if you didn't watch it before, go back and watch that. That link will be in the description box too. All right. That was part one. the two sides of us that make us who we are. The side of us that everyone sees and the side that exists in the shadows, okay? In part 2, talking about the effect that religion had on our souls when it comes to us doing shadow work. A lot of people don't even know what shadow work is, or they won't do it because the church establishment told them this was evil. That is not true, okay? Break away from religion and embrace the spirituality that is you and that is in the scriptures. Remember, I said this in another video, you were born spiritual, you were not born religious, okay? If the Most High said, I knew you before I formed you in the womb and I consecrated you before you came out, that means your soul existed somewhere else for him to know you. How could he know you if you didn't exist until you were born, right? Okay, so that's part 2, how religion hampers us sometimes. And then part 3, how we can do our shadow work. This is the how-to. Get your birth chart. Don't be afraid to look at yourself in the mirror. Take a long, hard look at yourself. Ask yourself those questions that I asked up front. Who in part 1? What would I be doing if I weren't afraid of what other people thought about me? That is the beginning of doing your shadow work, okay? Once you've done your shadow work, you're going to find out that your whole life changes. You're going to feel so powerful. So I know this was a long video, guys. I hope that you're still with me. If you're still with me, thank you. I don't typically do videos this long, but this was a lot of information and I wanted to get it all in one video. I didn't want to break it apart into 2 or 3 different videos. There's some chapter headings. There'll be some chapter markers so that if you want to go and just do chapter 1 and then or part 1 and then come back and do part 2 and then come back and do part 3 later, that's fine too. I'm an award-winning author, guys, from Fear to Faith, a Survivor Story, which is a tale of how, not a tale, it's actually, it's my story, it's nonfiction. It is a story and an illustration of how mindset can help you to overcome the worst of circumstances. 2011, I was diagnosed with a rare and deadly form of the C word, aka cancer. My mindset was, I'm gonna get through this because this is not on me to kill me. This is on me because I'm supposed to help somebody else with this that may not have the strength to get as low as I am right now and be able to recover, okay? So let me help somebody else with this so they don't have to go through what I went through. Mindset examples all throughout that book. Not even the height of the battle or the climax of the battle with the C word. I got other stories showing you, illustrating how mindset helped me to win over and over and over again. Okay, almost like David killing the lion, David killing the bear, leading up to his epic battle with Goliath. And even beyond Goliath, nobody talks about how many wars David fought in, how many battles he fought in and never lost one. Okay, that confidence that was built from that. It all starts with mindset. That's from Fear to Faith, a Survivor Story. And then last but not least, Stuck in an Elevator, which you see me smiling here. I loved writing that book. I enjoyed the process of writing it. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoy answering questions from people who've read it that want a one-on-one just to ask me, Matt, what is, it still amazes me to this day that how many different people can read the same book and get different narratives out of it. That's the most, I think that's one of the most rewarding things about being an author. But Stuck in an Elevator is a tale of passion and self-discovery, more important, that takes place high above the Los Angeles skyline. Guys, I'm losing my voice, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you for watching. Tell somebody you love them and mean it. How do you mean it? You show it. Peace.